All right, everybody, get ready because today we are diving headfirst into the world of chocolate.
Ooh, chocolate. Always a good topic. I'm excited to dig into this one.
And we've got a ton to cover in this deep dive. We're talking about ancient rituals, economic intrigue, heck, maybe even a few love potions along the way. You ready?
I am so ready. It's wild how something we see as a simple treat can have such a long and complicated history. You think about it, it's been revered, traded, even demonized throughout history.
That's what I love about these deep dives. Always something new to discover. Like, did you know chocolate was once used as actual money?
It's true. And we're not just talking about any old currency. Those cacao beans were highly valued.
Seriously. Like, imagine going to the store and instead of pulling out your debit card, you're counting out cacao beans.
Exactly. Can you imagine? Though I do wonder how many arguments broke out over what counted as a good bean.
Oh, I bet there were arguments. Counterfeit cacao beans who knew that was a thing.
Oh, I'm sure it happened. People probably tried to pass off ceramic imitations, or even beans from less desirable trees. Not all cacao beans are created equal.
Makes sense. So we're mainly talking about the Mayans and Aztecs, right? What made chocolate so special to them?
So for the Mayans and the Aztecs, chocolate, or should I say, the drink they made from cacao beans, was incredibly important to their culture and religion. I mean, they even saw it as a gift from the gods.
Wow. Definitely not your average candy bar.
Right. And forget about sweetening it up. Their traditional drink was a blend of ground cacao beans, spices, even chili peppers, all mixed with water. They called it zocolatl, which literally translates to bitter water.
Chili peppers in their chocolate. Now that's something I'd have to try to understand.
Definitely an acquired taste, I'd imagine.
So how on earth did we get from bitter water and chili peppers to the chocolate bars we all know and love today?
Well, when the Spanish conquistadors brought chocolate over to Europe in the 16th century, it wasn't an instant hit. Imagine that a bunch of Europeans skeptical of chocolate.
That's almost harder to believe than the chili pepper thing.
It's true. It took some time. They saw it as some kind of medicinal drink at first. It wasn't until they started adding sugar and sweeteners that it really took off.
It's always about satisfying that sweet tooth. That makes sense, though. No wonder it became such a luxury item.
Exactly. Sugar, combined with that whole exotic travel thing, made chocolate a symbol of indulgence and wealth. Before you know it, it was the thing to have among the European elite. And from there, its popularity just exploded.
It's fascinating, all that history, how something traveled across continents and changed over time. But now I'm really curious about the other journey chocolate takes, from bean to bar. What's actually involved in turning those cacao beans into the chocolate we know and love? Because I gotta say, I was shocked reading this article. Did you know that a cacao tree takes years to produce beans?
It's a surprisingly long process, right? It all starts with the cacao tree, which thrives in those tropical climates. And you're right, we're talking a 5, sometimes even 6-year wait for the tree to bear its first fruit.
5 years? Talk about delayed gratification. I can barely wait for a cup of coffee in the morning.
I hear you. But the journey doesn't end there. Once those pods finally appear, they take another 5 to 6 months to fully mature.
Wow. I never knew there was so much patience involved in making chocolate.
It's a labor of love, that's for sure. And here's a fun fact. Even though each pod can have anywhere from 20 to 60 beans, you need a surprising number of those beans to actually make a single bar of chocolate.
No wonder chocolate used to be so valuable.
Precisely. It really makes you appreciate that little piece of chocolate, doesn't it?
Mm.
Knowing how much time and effort went into getting it from a tree to your taste buds.
Yeah, it really does. So from those precious pods, what's the process? How do they actually make the chocolate?
Well, after the beans are harvested, they go through this fascinating transformation. Fermentation, drying, roasting, and finally grinding. Each step plays a key role in shaping the final flavor of the chocolate.
So much happens before we even get to taste it. And then, of course, there are all the different types of chocolate, dark, milk, white, even ruby chocolate now. It's amazing how much variety there is in the chocolate world.
Right. From those ancient Mayan rituals with their bitter water drink to the incredible creations we have today, it's pretty incredible to see how far chocolate has come. A true testament to our love affair with this amazing food.
It makes you appreciate that chocolate bar even more, doesn't it? Knowing all the history and the journey behind it. But while we're busy enjoying our chocolate, there's a whole other side to the industry we need to talk about. Some challenges that are, well, not quite as sweet. But we'll dive into all that after a quick message. Stay with us.
And we're back. Now, before we took a break, we were talking about those beans making their journey from the farm to become the chocolate we love.
Yeah, it's a fascinating process. But there's a whole other side to the chocolate industry, one that's, well, not as delicious. Exactly. And our article today doesn't shy away from those tougher conversations. We're talking about the difficulties many cacao farmers face. Things like unfair pay and, honestly, shockingly low wages. Especially considering these are the people growing the beans that bring us so much joy.
You're right. It's a real contrast, isn't it? The luxurious image we often associate with chocolate, and then the reality for many of these farmers. Especially in West Africa, many farmers work incredibly hard in tough conditions, often for very little in return.
It really is eye-opening. It makes you realize how much power we have as consumers. The article mentioned fair trade chocolate as a way to help with some of these problems. Can you explain what fair trade means exactly?
Sure. In the simplest terms, fair trade means that cacao farmers get paid fairly and are treated ethically. It's about creating a system where they're in direct contact with buyers, cutting out those who might take advantage of the system, and getting a much fairer price for what they grow.
That makes a lot of sense. So if we're careful about the chocolate we buy, making the effort to look for that fair trade label, we can actually make a positive impact.
Absolutely. Every time you choose fair trade chocolate, you're choosing a system that values transparency and fairness. It might seem like a small step, but those choices add up.
It's about more than just satisfying our chocolate cravings, then. It's about supporting an industry that's better for everyone.
Exactly. But even beyond buying fair trade, there are ways to be more thoughtful about our chocolate.
Like what?
Well, the article talked about something called mindful chocolate tasting, which I love.
Okay, mindful chocolate tasting. I'm intrigued. What is it?
It's about really savoring the experience, not just popping a piece in your mouth, but slowing down, using all your senses, sight, smell, taste, the works.
I like where this is going. Tell me more.
So imagine you have a piece of chocolate in your hand. Instead of just eating it, take a moment to really look at it. What color is it? Is it dark or milk chocolate? How does the light hit it? Is it shiny or more matte?
Okay, I can do that. What's next?
Then close your eyes and take a deep breath. Smell the chocolate. What do you notice? Fruit, nuts, maybe even something floral, depending on where the beans come from.
Wow, I never thought about it like that.
Finally, take a small bite and don't chew right away. Just let it melt on your tongue. How does it feel? How do the flavors change?
This is amazing. I had no idea there was so much to discover in just one bite of chocolate.
It's true. And it's a great way to appreciate everything that goes into making that chocolate bar. From those cacao farmers to the people who transform those beans into something delicious. We've covered a lot in this deep dive. Ancient rituals, modern challenges, mindful tasting. It's incredible how much there is to learn about chocolate. But before we wrap up, we need to talk about the future of chocolate. What does it hold? Stay tuned.
And we're back for our final thoughts on the fascinating world of chocolate. We've explored so much, from those ancient rituals to the challenges the industry faces today, but I always find myself most curious about what the future holds. What does it look like for chocolate?
It is a big question, right? And given those complexities, it can be easy to feel overwhelmed, but I have to say I'm optimistic, especially after reading this article. There are some really promising things happening in the world of chocolate.
Okay, I like the sound of that. What's giving you hope?
One of the most exciting things is the rise of these small batch bean-to-bar chocolate makers. These are people who are passionate about chocolate, sure, but also about making the industry fairer and more sustainable.
I've heard of bean-to-bar chocolate, but to be honest, I'm not totally clear on what makes it different.
It's about transparency, really. These smaller companies are all about creating direct relationships with the cacao farmers, so they know exactly where their beans are coming from and how those farmers are being treated. And of course, it means those farmers get paid a fair price for their hard work.
That's amazing. But do these small companies really have the power to change things?
They absolutely do. Because here's the thing, people like you and me, we're becoming more and more aware of where our food comes from and what's going on behind the scenes. We want to make choices that align with our values. And that's putting pressure on the bigger companies to step up their game too.
So it sounds like things are starting to shift in a more positive direction for everyone.
Exactly. By supporting those ethical companies, by asking questions about where our chocolate comes from, we can all be part of creating a more sustainable and delicious future for chocolate.
It's been a wild ride through the world of chocolate today. It's amazing how much there is to learn about something we often take for granted.
It's been a pleasure exploring it all with you.
So the next time you pick up a chocolate bar, Remember those cacao farmers, those incredible artisans, and all those people working hard to make sure we can enjoy that chocolate.
And most importantly, savor every bite.
That's all for today's deep dive, everybody. Until next time.